Welcome to today's podcast, episode 21 of the Colorado Food Magazine. We're here with Chef Keigh Crespo. We're going to be interviewing her about her food concept, Dos Abuelas, and her journey, her family, her history, what inspires her, and what the future looks like. So, Chef, thank you for joining us today. We're very honored to have you here. Like as I mentioned in the opening, there's several things we want to talk about. Several things like your family history, what inspires you, what made you start the food truck, what the future looks like. I want to talk about you participated in Hispanic Top Chef, what you thought about that, what were your biggest surprise or what surprised you about it, and just talk about whatever we want to talk about. It's your podcast. It's about you. We're about educating and elevating the Hispanic chef, and obviously you're one of those. So here you are. Thank you for coming. And like I always say, it's an honor to have somebody of your caliber and somebody of your background to be here.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you guys for having me. Feel real special. So can't wait to get started.
Okay, so tell us about how'd you get started in the culinary world? And then we'll move into where you grew up.
Sure. So I started in the South Bronx, and there's actually this kid, Marcus. I was helping him with his homework, and I was telling him the importance of finishing his homework so that he can graduate. And he was like, "Well, did you graduate, Kay?" And his mom looked at me like, "If you lie to this boy right now, I'm gonna throw this chancleta at your head," So I said, "I didn't, but I will." And that's how I started looking for programs that interested me, because I dropped out of high school at a young age.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and because I had to work, and I felt like I wasn't learning what I needed to learn in high school. If you're telling me that Christopher Columbus was this great man, I don't want to hear it. So I dropped out of school and went to the library and learned what I thought I needed to learn, and I just traveled and lived life that way. But the little boy, Marcus, he got me. So I had to.
He inspired you.
Yeah. And I can't tell him what he needs to do, what's important, and I didn't do that. So
And how old was he?
He was 7.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 28.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I looked into programs, and Monroe College in the Bronx had a program where you can get your GED and also get your college associate or bachelor's. So I looked into all the programs, and none of them reached out to me until I saw the Culinary program. And I always loved cooking because, I always watched my grandmothers, and I just had a feeling for it, but I just never paid attention to it, So, I went to culinary school. I signed up. I graduated my GED, and I graduated with my associates in culinary.
Nice. And what was the name of the culinary school?
It was Monroe Community College.
So you literally, from this kid, this conversation.
Yeah.
That's the stereotype about the chancla.
Yeah.
That makes me.
But it was true. She looked at me with the eye like, "Go ahead and say something that's a lie. I'm gonna throw this chancla at you."
That's quite fun. That's funny because I can always imagine my mom. My mom is 5'0" or actually shorter. And
Yeah.
she was always like, I'm over a foot taller than her, and
Yeah.
and it was just, you just didn't mess with her.
Yeah, no, the chanclas were like the ninja stars to the moms and grandmas.
Oh, I know.
They could aim. It's crazy. It's like they can't throw a ball, but a chancla, it would go a long way.
That's true. So you went to culinary school.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned earlier about your grandparents or your grandmas
Yeah.
inspiring you.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. You grew up in South Bronx.
Yes.
So what was that like? You always hear stories. Is that?
I grew up in the South Bronx in Jackson Avenue, and I went to PS5 elementary school, and I grew up in poverty, but I didn't know I was poor. I thought that that's what life was, and my mom did a great job of just giving me what she could, because my dad passed away when I was 10. So she was my mom and my dad. So when I graduated elementary school, all the kids are going to like restaurants and they're like going out places. And this was the first time I I realized what poor was because we couldn't go anywhere. So we're in front of my building, and I'm like, all right, where are we going? And like my brother's looking at me like, we're not going anywhere, And I'm like, why not? And like my mom was just like, she seemed like sad, and I didn't understand. And my brother's like, we can't, we don't have it. And I was like, well, we can't go to McDonald's either? And he's like, no. So I think that was the moment that I realized that, we were in a situation that was, different. And so we ended up going to my grandma's house. And, little did I know then that was like the best restaurant I could go to anyways. So, grandma gave me this amazing plate, which I make today, called Grandma's Plate. Rice, beans, plantains, pork. And I ate it and waited for Mr. Softy to come down the block. Opened up the pompa, which is the fire hydrant. And that, for me, was like better than going to a restaurant. Or I realized that, that's something that you can't buy, So my grandmother, my dad's mom stayed in Puerto Rico. She never left. My grandmother, my mom's mom, she left Jauco, Puerto Rico at, I believe, like 25. She was pregnant with twins. She already had 8 kids. So I have 11 aunts and uncles.
Wow.
Yeah, Puerto Rican families, I tell you, And she moved to Brooklyn first, and then moved to the Bronx and lived there until she was 87 and left us. But growing up, in the Bronx with that grandmother, I learned a certain kind of way of cooking. And then when I would go back to Puerto Rico and stay with my dad's mom, I would learn a different technique of cooking. So they both showed me in different ways. But it was like in a Mr. Miyagi kind of way. Right. Because, it wasn't like they were both standing there with measurements or telling me, like, this is the list. It was like, go get me the tomato sauce.
Right.
Go get me the beans. Go to the back of the yard and get, the tomatoes. So it's just like, but I remember everything. So when I grew up and I went shopping, I was buying things that I didn't know why I was buying them, but I bought them, and then I just started putting things in a pot, and I was like, oh, I was like the Karate Kid. I learned how to do this without them actually showing me, like the way you would learn from a chef, so.
I want to ask you a little bit about growing up in the Bronx. I have a friend, my best friend actually, who just recently moved over to New York. He lives in Brooklyn now.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that he tells me, especially when working with the podcast here, is he's like, man, if you guys came out and you did that exact kind of podcast in New York, you'd explode. The food culture in New York is absolutely incredible. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's one of the things I miss about New York. I love Colorado, but, back home I could get halal food, which I miss. You go to the corner, you get some rice with some white sauce on it, some chicken. I mean, it's delicious. And, so many different, cultures. You got Venezuelan, Colombian, not just, Mexican or Cuban or one Puerto Rican restaurant. It's so diverse.
It's a whole cornucopia of
pretty much
cultures, restaurants, and fusion of the culinary world.
Absolutely. Any cuisine you could think about is in New York. And then that's my favorite part.
And you miss that here.
Oh, a lot. Which is why I opened up Los Abuelas here.
Right. And is there only 2 Puerto Rican restaurants that you're aware of?
In Denver, there is no Puerto Rican restaurant. I mean, I have my food truck.
Right.
But in Colorado Springs, I believe there is one. But that's about it that I know of. And then, I'm sure there's some Puerto Ricans that do a little catering.
Right.
And then, like, maybe in Aurora, stuff like that. But, like, a place that you can go to and, like back home, not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. So your grandma's inspired you.
Yes.
Then I love the analogy of the Miyagi, Mr. Miyagi. Wax on, wax off.
For sure.
Go get the tomatoes, stir the pot. What am I doing this for? Then later on, did it come to fruition?
For sure. Like when I make rice now, I'm like, I put the spoon, and if that spoon is standing, then the water and rice ratio is perfect.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to remember that.
Yeah. It's the old school, kind of way. So that's what stuck to me. And then I kind of just researched into like Puerto Rican cuisine, and then I took my culinary and mixed it, because some of the Puerto Rican food, it's not that it's unhealthy, but I wouldn't use canola oil now. Like I would use olive oil and just use certain things to just make it to today's kind of like
bring
influences.
it into the 21st century.
Right.
Kind of a fusion from the old to the new. I mean,
Yeah.
all restaurants do that.
Right.
They have their old style recipes.
Correct.
But they use modern technology, better oils, better things that are available to them.
Absolutely.
So that's a fascinating journey. You always hear about the Bronx. I've never been. I've been in New York once. I was just in and out, just had a little fun in the downtown, then went back to where we were. It was only a day, so I don't have a full experience. But everybody that's ever been there, obviously the city that never sleeps, the Big Apple.
For sure.
Is that a true statement?
I mean, it definitely is. It's definitely changed. Like I think most hoods have changed and gentrified. I mean, I don't mind it, but at the same time, I do. Before, if you were on a train and you're coming from Manhattan to the Bronx, everybody would get off on 86th Street. White people wouldn't pass 86th Street. Now white people get off on Harlem, and then they go to actually the Bronx. And actually, some people call it Sobro. Like
what does that mean?
South Bronx.
Oh, okay.
So it says, like, you know what? You can move into my neighborhood, but don't try to change that.
Right.
Don't try to change our name. It's the
got it.
South Bronx, homie. You live there now, okay? So, bro, like, what we doing? It's ridiculous.
You're very passionate about that.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. So,
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. So your grandma inspired you, and then now you want to move forward with a new concept. What do you want? What does the future look like for you?
So definitely, I been in the food truck for 4 years, and it's been quite the journey. It's been hard. It's been, I would say, sometimes lonely in the sense that I miss my family, and I know like if they were here with me, we would rock it together, And when I went back home, I did a pop up with my cousin, and it was like a car show, and we got together, and I blasted that in the Bronx, and it was like mind-blowing how many people came out to see me.
Really?
From knowing that what I've done in Colorado and coming there and having all my family. So remember, I said I have a big family. So it filled half the park. Like all my cousins, my aunts, and then having them help me was the best part, because I didn't have to do much but just say hi to everybody. Usually I'm like serving, I'm prepping, I'm trying to talk to people all by myself. And having my mom and my aunts and like, my cousins and my friends and the hoods come in the neighborhoods and the community. I mean, I knew then that, what I was doing was the right path. I felt that my grandmothers were like proud at that moment.
Right. What's one of the best memories from your grandmothers you remember?
My best, so many.
There's probably 100, but
yeah.
Give me 2 or 3. So.
I think that my grandma, Genoveva, she's the one that lives in the Bronx, on Kelly Street. I was playing stickball in the middle of the street with the boys, and, she would tell me, don't pass that red car. Like, you can stay right there where I could see you. She was always at the window. She was nosy, but she was always at the window. And I passed the window because the ball was going past that car, so I wanted to catch it. And I caught it, of course, but she's looking out the window at that moment. And she screams my name, and all the boys are like laughing, like, you're in trouble, And I saw the chancleta from the window, so I was already, I was already
Ninja
scared.
star.
I was like, yeah, we're not throwing that chancleta out that window because it's gonna reach. So she's like, come upstairs, and I thought she was like furious and like angry. So I go upstairs, and she's like, I just want you to listen to me when I tell you. I was like, I was trying to catch the ball. She was like, I did see you catch the ball. So comes to the kitchen. I want you to, try this chicken that I just made. So pollo guisado, it's like a stewed chicken, And it was just, she can hug me without touching me every time she gave me a plate. So anytime something happened in my life, I would go to her and she would give me whatever she made, and I would feel so much better, And that's my favorite part of both my grandmothers, actually. Like, they can both do that to me, and that's what stayed with me, and that's what I give to my customers. You know, that's why I cook, and I don't just cook like some chefs. You know, I feel like they cook from their hearts, and then some chefs just cook from their ego. You know what I'm saying? From like, oh, I could do this, and that's great too. But like with my grandmothers and my customers, like when I cook, I think about them. So when I'm stirring or I'm putting spices, it's like they're with me, and I can feel that.
It's an extension of yourself,
right?
Of your family, your community, your heritage, your culture.
Absolutely.
All put forward.
All
right
together
here.
in one plate. Like, here you go.
Right, and that's what we found with almost all the chefs we've interviewed. And I distinctly remember when my son was younger. Now he's 19, but when I think he was like 6, 7, 8. I don't recall the exact. But it reminds me of your grandma, of what we talked about. He was like, Dad, at the time, Daddy, you know, and he's like, how do grandmas make, and he's talking to himself, but at the same time me, he says, how do grandmas make food taste so much better when they're making the same food as everybody else? And then he just kind of like looks at the plate, and he's like, because it's made with love. And to this day, I remember that.
Yeah.
Where we were, what we were doing, all those things. And that's exactly what that reminds me of. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty amazing. And so, but you're right. All the chefs we've met, we've talked to, you were one of the chefs that participated in the Hispanic Top Chef.
Yes.
And you also participated just a couple days ago in our first Hispanic Chefs Association meeting. So, What were your impressions of that? What was the biggest surprise? And obviously you love participating. I loved your passion and fire with one of the judges. I was ready to step in. So kind of tell me. Let's start with the Hispanic Top Chef.
Yeah, the Hispanic Top Chef. I mean, I was honored to be invited to participate and be the only Puerto Rican, a Latina chef there. That was awesome against the guys. I feel that one of the things that shocked me was the support. Sometimes in the hospitality world, you don't get that much support. You'll get, it's almost like a competition.
Well, it was a competition.
No, for sure. But I just mean like in general, like in the outside of that. Like even in the competition.
You're on your own,
right.
Figure it out,
exactly.
Then come in.
And even in the competition, I still had guys, like, hey, Kate, do you need something? Or like, it was a competition, but we still had each other's backs. And that doesn't really... That's
true teamwork.
Right. And it doesn't really work like that in other places. It's like either you're on your own or I'm against, we come, it's who got the better plate for some reason. And that's why I've had like 50,000 different chef jobs, because I can't tolerate that. And I can't tolerate when chefs talk to you a certain type of way. I just walk out, So as a chef, and when I teach, my cooks, it's like, it's the Mr. Miyagi way. You're going to wax on and wax off. And I'm going to have your back. If you mess up, it's okay. We're going to get you there. We're going to get you to do it right. So at the competition, I just had fun. It didn't feel like, I was against everybody. It was just like, we all having fun. Someone's going to win for sure, but that wasn't my priority, whether I won or lost. It was just like, I'm surrounded by amazing chefs, amazing people. And the fact that it was just this Hispanic community and being supported by other people as well, for me, it was just like a blessing, and having that network and having friends come, and they were, being able to invite people, and they were there and they got to see that experience. I think that was like the best part.
Nice. Yeah. Oh yeah. You did a magnificent job. Everything. Yeah. Every comment I've heard from the judges to these vice presidents of larger restaurant groups and hotels, they said they were like, but pleasantly surprised with the high quality craftsmanship, skill set of all the chefs, and you were included in that. So my kudos to you for that.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
And so then also you just participated in the official launch of the Hispanic Chefs Association.
Yes.
Just 2 days ago.
Yeah.
What are your impressions there?
I mean, that was great because I got to see familiar faces from the competition. So, like, once I meet you the first time, the second time I see you, you're already papi to me or mommy to me. We're already a family, and...
Well, there were a lot more that you didn't know.
Right.
Too.
So, I mean, just the fact that they were there and they took the time to be there, and get to know about the Hispanic Association, what you guys are doing, what we doing, I feel like that's great because I know like by the second one, it's just gonna grow because there's so many more Latinos out there that don't know about this, and I'm gonna get them. I'm gonna bring them in because I feel like together, we can help each other. The community is people think, like, a lot of people ask me, are there really a lot of Puerto Ricans in Colorado? I'm like, yes. I was surprised. Like when I opened up, they just came out of nowhere. Like, it was like amazing, and they came from Aurora, Colorado Springs, like Broomfield, Boulder. It's amazing. So in that same regard, there's a lot of Latino chefs out there and cooks that would love to participate.
Yeah, and that's our goal, is to educate and elevate. Educate about the cuisine, the skill sets, educate about what's going on in the culinary world, elevate the chefs, and make them the brand versus the restaurant. And have a support network, have a help, not only support, but opportunities that may arise. If you have an issue as a chef, you need staffing. But I saw a lot of sharing going on after that, like, hey, do you have anybody available I have this event coming up? It really was very, very nice.
Yeah, the network, that was great because anything that I need from, me transitioning, I want to just go from the food truck to Ghost Kitchen, or even sell spices. Like everyone there either knew someone or was someone to get all of that happening. And I think that is the best part, that just that willingness to want to help. I think that's the best part of the Hispanic Association.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing. Earlier you mentioned, you said you worked in a lot of restaurants. I know you have a tremendous amount of passion.
Yeah, I'm very passionate.
And like I said, I was ready. I say it funnily, like when you were engaging with Pablo and the other chefs.
Yeah.
And
I love you, Pablo.
Yeah. Oh, I know, he's magnificent. All the chefs were there. I mean, like I said, it was the quality of the judging, the quality of the food, the quality of the competition.
Yes.
It was magnificent. With MSU, they were just tremendous partners. But I just remember you're like ready to throw down, not in a bad way, but it just
that's the Bronx, baby. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
That's the passion. That's just like you're talking about a dish that comes from my culture. So sometimes in that regard, if you're going to talk about it, you're thinking about your culture.
Right, and that's what we're trying to do, is bridge cultures here.
Exactly.
We're trying to elevate each other because a lot of people may not know the influences that you have.
Yeah.
But let's talk about, you also mentioned, the leadership style you like. What is a good leader from your perspective? And what do you do as a leader to influence the person to the left and to the right and make them better?
I believe that communication, compassion are the two that go together. I worked for Jose Garces. He's a top chef in Philadelphia, and he opened Rosa Blanca. And I worked there for about 4 or 5 months until I moved back to New York. And a lot of people, I can understand some cooks, you'll see a top chef and you're in awe, you're like, oh my God, Jose Garces. And he walks in and I'm like, what's up, papi? And everyone's looking at me like, did she just cook? And I'm like, what happened? Did I do something wrong? And, he stops to me and I'm like, when you can open shop in New York so I could go back home, like it'd be great. He's like, man, I'm working on it, but I think I'm going to, open up shop in Atlantic City. So we're just conversing. But I think that whole part of someone that's a leader will make you feel like you don't have time for someone just because you're a top chef, just because you're on some other level. You have, like, he knew my name, And
he did or did not?
He did.
Okay.
And he's only been there like twice. So I think, when it comes down to leadership, is really knowing, who decides to like be a part of your team, and then taking that person and seeing what their goals are and where they want to be, and just taking that and taking what you've learned and embrace that with them and take them step by step, and just really getting to know them. Because coming from so many different kitchens, I've just seen so many people not get that guidance, just being yelled at just because they cut a potato wrong. It's just like, if you
starts with leadership.
Yeah. So if if you have that patience, if you have that compassion, you can make a dishwasher an executive chef. Because when I first started, I was a dishwasher at the DoubleTree in Manhattan.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That is. Now you can be an executive chef or are an executive chef, own your own business. So it's the American dream. It's your dream, and you make it happen.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't, in all our little talks we've had, I know they're always, generally 2 or 3, 4 minutes long, but I didn't know you started as a dishwasher. That's a very inspirational story.
Yes, I did. And I took that serious too. I washed out of those dishes, and I was just happy to be, because I was still going through my culinary classes, but I immediately started applying to, restaurants just to get my foot in there. And, when I read Anthony Bourdain's first book, like, I knew that I was doing the right thing, because just the way he talked, like, that's New York. I was like, that's me. Like right now I want to curse, but I just want to, I don't want to do that.
You can do that on here.
But it's just like. There's that passion, and Anthony really brought that out of me. So when I was at the competition, that was that little Anthony in me. Like, what? What'd you say? That's different, Papi. What you talking about?
No, that was great. It was made for great excerpt. No, I loved it. I loved it because that's how I am at times.
Right, but it's always with love. You know what I'm saying? Like I always say, I'm half hood, half hippie. So the hippie's always out first. But if you press the buttons, guess who's going to come out? The Bronx is going to come out.
You got the duality of, of man and women.
Yes.
That's great. I love your story. It's very inspirational. I mean, you seem like overall you're a very optimistic person.
Yes.
And I know we've all, last couple of years been smacked in the teeth with the pandemic. So you mentioned, you want to move on to ghost kitchens.
Yes.
So what does the future look like? What do you want to do? Give us your dream.
My dream is definitely to have a restaurant in Denver. Be that first Puerto Rican restaurant in Denver. However, with COVID and everything going on, and the market stuff, I think that the best way to start might be a ghost kitchen, cost-wise. But the dream is to actually have a place where all my customers that have been with me for 4 years can sit down, and I can actually bring Puerto Rico into a little space, and with a little salsa band, mojitos, and just have that environment for them. I did the food truck for 4 years. This last 6 months, I had Bradley with me, Bradley Garcia. We got into the food truck business together. But he has his ways. I have my ways. I've been in the game longer than him. So I think that with his passion is different from mine.
Right.
And he's a great guy, but I think that
you have your dream. You want
I
to
have my
pursue your
dream,
dream.
yeah.
Okay.
And I'm gonna stick to that. And I know that he's gonna be great on his own. And we taught each other a lot.
Oh,
so
nice. Okay, good.
I know that now he knows.
It's a respect.
Absolutely. I have nothing but love for that man. So, so right now I'm looking at some ghost kitchens, and I just want to be in one place where everyone can find me. Everyone's always asking me, where are you? And that makes me anxious, because it's just like I just want to be in one place and feed people 7 days a week, because they always ask me, are you open on Sunday? Are you open on? I'm like, I want to be, But, that's right now I'm just looking at some ghost kitchens, hoping to
we'll do
up.
our best as an organization. We'll put the word out via the Chefs Association and our network. We'll see what we can do to help you, because we want you to help you receive your.
I appreciate that so much, John.
Dream. So we're going to wrap this up. I mean, it's a great story. Love about your grandma, your passion, the Top Chef. What the future looks like for you. What do you have for us?
I think that becoming a part of the Hispanic Association is going to truly open up doors, not just for me, but my fellow, chefs, Latino chefs, and the community, because of COVID, we couldn't have the Puerto Rican festival. And I've been a part of that for like 3 years, every time. And every time I go, everyone that's been to my truck has always gone. And I cannot wait for you guys to be a part of that.
Oh, great. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Like I said, we're building a network. We're eventually, we are spreading our wings. People from other states want to start Chefs Association, be a chapter of the HRA. Michigan State recently reached out to us for their hospitality program. I'm very excited for the future. We do have a bright future. And there's so many opportunities that we have, just like the podcast, the digital media with Alan and Brendan, and we can make commercials, and not at the high cost everybody else does.
Right.
But extremely professional, make recipes, help you, whatever we need to do. We're doing all that. We have the Latin Supper Club, the Chefs Association, the Food and Beverage Language Institute. I can go on for another 10 minutes. That's not my
Yes.
goal, but my goal is to let everybody listening how they support us by listening to our podcast. Tell people about it. And the same for you. Get other chefs to the next meeting,
Absolutely.
which will be February 7th. So,
Yes, I mean, again, thank you so much for having me, and I just want to thank all my customers, friends, colleagues. I'm going to continue to take everybody to Puerto Rico without a flight. You know what I'm saying?
I just had one more question for you. We always like to ask the chefs that come on, and especially you being the first Puerto Rican chef on here, giving us a completely different look at an entirely different side of the cuisine. What are your 3 favorite restaurants? It could be here, it could be in Colorado, it could be in the Bronx, but what are 3 of your number 1 places that you would recommend to our listeners out there?
Okay. Wow. So many.
If you can think of some.
But I would say one of them out here is Super Mega Bien.
Perfect.
I love El Diablito. And I would say Nomad is pretty good.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I see you, Pablo.
Yeah,
I see you, baby.
we've been talking to Pablo over at the hotel over there in Red Rocks, and I mean he's got a fantastic
Yes.
setup there. He was helping us out with the Hispanic Chefs Association meeting that we had earlier this week.
Yeah, I took a peek at the menu, and the setup is quite beautiful.
Absolutely, it's fantastic. Well, thank you again, Keigh, for coming on.
Absolutely.
We appreciate
Thank
you.
you for having me, Bobby.
It's
I
another
appreciate you.
exciting story. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
so that was Super Mega Bien with Nina Rodriguez. I think that's on Zunai Street.
Yes.
Then
I love her.
The Nomad off of that's an Origin Hotel in Red Rocks. What was the third one?
El Diablito.
Where's that at?
We actually went to eat there. Is it Diablito or Diablo? No, it's Diablito. It's a taco.
I know. I just can't remember where we were, but it was late at
me
night,
neither.
and I just looked at
That
my
was
GPS.
after the competition. I had a couple of tequilas, so
We
that's
all
I
did.
remember.
So yeah, okay. Well, we'll have Brendan look that up, because I do remember it. It was fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you for being on. I greatly appreciate it. We'll
Thank you
do
for
our
having me.
best to help you and move forward and
Thank you
pursue
so
that
much,
dream.
John.
Thank
Appreciate you guys. Much love.
Okay, thank you.